Hi, everybody. It's thrilled to have you here. I wish we could be in person, but this allows us to reach a lot of people, um, all virtually, and it seems like the forefront that we're in the midst of all this virus and pandemic. And having said that, we like to make sure we start off with a safety moment that or a safety, you know, spot is since we're not together, make sure you know where your exits are. Make sure you know if something goes off, an alarm or whatever. We're recording this. We can play it back later. Certainly if you're driving, we ask you to not do that. But this is for you, and we want your feedback and your inputs. And I wish we could look at each other face to face. But we're going to go through this, and we're fortunate to have Matt here with his vast background on or drives in general. We're pretty proud of our drive portfolio, and we're realizing the need for providing advanced solution sets around service to help make sure that you can get the most out of those drive packages. So that's what this is about. And our first polling question here is to just sort of gauge, just to kind of show you how it works. Chris will be sliding over those questions, and literally there's there's a lot of drives, but there's really two classes of drives. There's system drives, which work together in a coordinated manner, and then there are process drives that are sort of standalone. Chris, can you slide that polling question over? There you go. And so what happens here is we'll give you a minute just to pick which ones you are the most dominant. And this is where, Matt, if you want to chime in to kind of give a little bit of definition, this would be great while they're doing the polling.
Yeah, sure. A system drive would be the sectional drives on a paper machine or tissue machine, winder, re-reeler, coder, on machine, off machine coder. Standalone would be pumps and fans, also maybe recovery boiler, line kill, things like that. So the system drives, sectional drives we'd call zone 1, and process drives, standalone throughout the mill, we'd call those zone 2.
All right. Well, thank you. So I believe as we're learning to use all this, are we finished with the polling questions, Chris? Can you save those? And then I forget, do I have to turn it off or you turn it off?
Yeah, let me save and I'll turn it off. There's still some people bringing some answers through. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we don't want to. Well, that's where this one's an easy one, so we're going to warm you up. And so this is where we need feedback. I know there's a lot of AV folks on here as well, and that's fine. You can chime in, but we want to make sure that we align the solution sets to the needs of our clients. So I forget? There we go. Now, let's get into this. Well, to help with service is great, and there's a lot of different flavors of service. And as we've developed and evolved, we've realized that we can have different sections of service that fall into this portfolio. And so as we go through this, we'll be explaining what a benchmark is. That's really a relatively easy evaluation of performance. It's just to see if you're good, bad, or ugly. That's all it is. Is a lot of these drives. Most of these drives have a 99% uptime, and so you're like, well, why do I need to do any service? Well, we're finding that these drives are lasting longer than the career cycle of a lot of our people, and so they still don't handle lightning strikes or a forklift bumping into them, or if you haven't kept the PM kits or maintenance or walkthroughs or you might need to just do a check. If it hadn't been done for a while, you need to do one. So we've got that solution set. If it's been a long time since we've visited you or had someone look at you, we recommend a fingerprint. That's where we call it boots on the street, is we need to go and look things around. We need to look at the cabinets, do a physical inspection, look it over. Implementation is just that, is where we fix things or we carry out recommendations. That we've always done that. And then you get into the performance accelerators, which is how do we make sure that you're getting the most out of your drive system? How do we do that in a proactive manner, utilizing the powers of the digital age? How do we use our performance monitors, our key performance indicators, and trend performance so that even your best service drives person can't be at a drive 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? So how can we do that in a proactive way? That's where we've done a lot of work in recent years and have a whole set of solution sets that we can overlay on your install base to do these projections. And that's what we're going to get into, is to give a little bit of an idea of what these are. And then at the very end, you're going to get a chance to sort of pick which one that you'd be interested in. And we're going to provide a promotional offer here for your attendance today, is so you can see, you know, we're putting our money where our mouth is. So this gives you a way to kind of scale so you can know what you need and we can know what to deliver. Now, the risk, you know, you might say, you know, what's the big deal about these things is, you know, these things are the controllers that control the speed of your motor. You turn it on and forget it. Well, maybe not. What if it overheats? What if it shuts down? What if, you know, you go to change a part, but you don't have the parts? What if there's a whole bunch of what if constraints, and when it comes down to it, it comes down to dollars per downtime. And so this is where you could put up the polling question, Chris, and then Matt, maybe you can help elaborate. But we've been hearing a lot of, you know, how much is an hour of downtime or lost production as a result of a coordinated drive that's acting up, or a speed, you know, if your machine stops because the drives are out of whack, or your draws aren't right, or your throughput's not working quite right. What does that cost you? Did I say that right, Matt, or did you want to add a little more on that?
Yeah, I think that's good, Kevin. You know, on the large paper machines, I'd say the figure of $20,000 an hour can come to mind. Smaller machines, probably less, and then a bigger mill, even more. So
I remember you telling me, Matt, it wasn't really just. I mean, the downtime is a problem, but then they're coming back up. Because when the drive stops, it wasn't a scheduled down. So when that machine stops and there's stock all through it, then you got to bring it back. So that's isn't that something else that is a concern?
yeah, exactly. Some customers will tell you to get sellable paper again. It may take them 4 hours to get it back up on the reel and get sellable paper. So fixing the drive, if it's a quick fix, and you know, an hour, but that time to get back up on the sheet and paper, they could lose 12 hours. You know.
Well, especially if I don't want to spook everybody. This doesn't happen. Yeah, we're not trying to. This isn't like our drives break on a daily basis, but we can't predict when they're going to break. So if it break that's part. If you don't have the digital infrastructure, you can't. So if it breaks in the middle of the night, then you got to call somebody, and then you got to get them there, and so those all add up. So what can we do to mitigate that risk of loss? You know, if you're losing $20,000 an hour and you're down for 12 hours, that's a big number. So what can we do to mitigate that risk? That's the question, and that's what you need to ask yourself. Am I safe, reliable, or optimized, and can you prove it? And if you don't really know, then these solutions can help answer that. We don't want you to leave here thinking you have no way of knowing, just wait till it breaks and we'll fix it. That's too dangerous in today's market. So the diagnostic phase is just that, is when we ask the question, are you safe, reliable, or optimized? You know, that kind of came to us with the Health and Safety Commission in Europe. And unfortunately, we've had that explosion in Maine with the digester. That's scary. And that's really what happens is when people have to stop and ask, am I safe, reliable, and optimized? You need to expand that across all of your assets, functions, and processes in the mill or your facility. I don't know if we have people outside of paper, but you may have an issue. So on your drives, when's the last time anyone just did a holistic look? We recommend that you at least do that at least once a year. When was the last time that you evaluated all your parts or your parts kits? When did you just have somebody walk through that had expertise in this space? If the answer is you don't remember, please take us up on our offer and let's get that taken care of. We don't want you to make the news in a bad way. So a system drives benchmark, really, I just jumped to the results, is it kind of gives you a red, yellow, green. It's basically where you can provide us with the data, and there's a lot of data handling, data collection components, and we can work with you. Typically, you'll provide us with this data, and if you can't, we'll send in one of our drive specialists to collect this information, and then we run it through our analytic engines to be able to give you a profile of performance. It's really, and if it's all red, then we probably need to do some stuff. If it's all green, it's great, but then you have peace of mind. But that's really what this was designed, and that's just the first step, is just to give you a glimpse. And basically, this is what, once we turn this on through the digital arena, we run this analysis on a contiguous basis, and then you can trend the performance trends. And you can tell, and you can set limits of, hey, this thing is going from green to yellow to red. I need to, let's alert somebody. So this is the first step, or it is a step, and then we recommend this. Now, the next step, let's see, here's another one that comes up. You can put the polling question on. Matt, I'll let you jump in on this one to kind of explain what these failure modes are. We're interested in what we want to kind of learn from you guys. What are the failure modes you're hearing of? Could you just explain what those are, Matt?
The power unit would be the converter or the inverter itself. Communication could be communications to the overriding controller or between the drives and the controller, or the power unit to the drive controller. Those would be some of the top failures tech support it gets. Cooling fans, there's an age to all of them. The last several years we've gone to high efficiency fans, so the bearings last longer. They can get quite a few more hours out of them. But cooling fans, if they get a lot of material, a lot of dust in them, that's going to cause them to fail sooner. So fans are kind of a common problem, or the media blocks up to the drive, causing a cooling issue. And just maybe the lack of PM in general, getting eyes on the equipment, the power components where there's big current capability bus bars. When we roll our modules in and out, there's a spring tension back there, and over time that can wear out, and that should be looked at periodically, maybe annually or semi-annually, but needs to be looked at.
I think we have some pictures of those here. I think we have some pictures of that to kind of help people with that here in a second. And I remember I remember a cooling fan incident where we'd actually kind of turned this in the digital age, and it was a new installation, and the temperature was overheating, and everyone said that has to be a faulty sensor. These are brand new drive units. Well, somebody had put a notebook over the exhaust fan, and it was heating up, and so we sent a guy out, and we're so we actually changed the geometry of the cooling fan exhaust. That's the kind of stuff, guys, is we can now digitally ascertain the health of your information. A lot of times where in the past we had to physically look at it. Now with the digital infrastructure that's in place and the data, we can actually do correlations between frequent failure modes and digital alignment to that, so we don't have to guess. We can get you the answer faster. Did you want to save this one, Chris, and then we can move on? If everyone's entered?
Yep, you're good to go. I already saved. And
well, do I have to close it then? It's still up on mine, so, or do you close that?
No, I'll close it just a second. That's probably me.
That's why I wait for you to close that. Then I know I can move on. There we go.
There we go.
I don't know if everybody sees the same thing, but okay. The fingerprint is really, that's a lot of times this is where this stuff all started. Years ago, we'd go in and, I was one of the early AV firemen. There'd be there'd be an emergency or someone was having trouble starting their machine, and they said, well, send in the team. And I was on that team, and I always said, man, if we could have been here a day before and I could have looked at this data, I could have told you you're going to crash tomorrow or in the near future. And we realized that's the valuable knowledge, is to be able to ascertain or evaluate or perform analytics on information and then align that with known failures to give you some sort of a forecast of reliability. That's where this started, and it's going like crazy. We have fingerprints for everything, and then we use the word fingerprint because every machine's a little bit different. Just like every fingerprint on a human's a little bit different, but we can still have methods of documenting those. And that's what we did here, is we documented the process of measuring the fingerprint or the performance of the physical asset or process or function, in this case, system drive. So we can look at when we try to do non-invasive tests as much as possible, and Matt can talk a little bit about that, but visual inspections, and we're even now with our remote insights, if you're not ready for us to come to site, we can send you an iPad and you can walk around with our guys' eyes on your stuff. So there are things that we can do now that we couldn't have dreamed of doing. And then there are KPIs that we have evaluated over the years that align with particular performance. And I'll just show you some of those. These are these are the silos, if you will. There's electrical, temperature, motion, and then there's these fault logs that we have in every drive. And really a lot of this stuff was sort of built by our development team, and they were internal codes that we would run through doing factory acceptance tests. And it was like, well, why don't we just make those available in the production environment so that we can tell that the drive is performing as it was designed to be, and that's really what this is about. ABB is a big company, and we make this stuff. So we can tell you where you should be, and then we can measure where you are, and then we generate a gap of performance. Then that gap, we fill in the financials to show you, hey, this is what it could cost you if this breaks. And then we break that down into recommendations and says, okay, your speed error on your motion means this. Therefore, you have to fix that. So what I don't want you to see is that I've seen these things done by our competitors. Well, we'll do a diagnostic service, and then the response is buy a new system. It doesn't matter what the failure is. You buy a new system, and we'll take care of it. That's not what it is about. We want to make sure your drives work and perform as good, if not better, than the day they left the factory. And we have the mechanisms in place to do that. We have the standardization of reporting. That's been a big deal. Actually, we've had several customers over the years they expect a fingerprint to be included in their contract. And as part of that, we have a contractual obligation to provide you a standard reporting function. I found these to be so valuable because I can't do every fingerprint, neither can Matt. But when the report follows these structures, we can very, very quickly jump to it and say, oh, this is what this means, this is what that means, and it provides a standard or a library or a baseline of performance. And so that's part of the fingerprinting process. In the past, it was sort of an assessment, and a smart guy walked by, see, everything's good. Well, there's a lot going on these drives, and we now have a standard process that we can put together so that you have a technical reference and an overview. Again, we don't want to make a golden binder, basically a binder that's worth it basically costs as much as it would weigh in gold, and then it sits on the shelf and you never use it. We would rather, there's other things we can do, folks, is we want to make this a usable living document that provides a reference and a point in time that we can go back to and say, boom, this was cool. And if you have, and that's what we're recommending in our current contract structure, that we include at least this once a year. And if you haven't had this done, we really recommend that you take advantage of the offer that we're going to present at the end. Implementation is really just what this says. It's implementing corrective actions, whether it be software and maintenance, backups, your spares, your critical spares. Maybe there's, and they can come from you. You guys live with this. The customers could say, hey, something's funny with this. Okay. That would go on the list. Or we use an ABB person that has a rotation and say, hey, something's not right through a preventive maintenance plan. Or maybe we use data-driven, where the data is forecasting issues. Implementation is, in the past, majority of that had to be done on site. With the digital age, there's opportunities to do implementation through remote connections. And those are always open, and we can evaluate those with you. In terms of, and these are where just to kind of the things that we can do in our assessment phase is to help identify where you are in your life cycle for your drive system. That's one of the components of the fingerprint is, these things last for a long, long time, but we don't just stop making drives. So there are different classes of a life cycle of a product. We call them active, classic, limited, and obsolete. And it's important that you know where you're at on the life cycle of your asset. And then we provide the parts that you have access, because we've seen people, they may have an obsolete part, but they went on eBay and bought a bunch of parts, but they don't match. They look kind of like they would match, but they're not the right rev numbers, or the batteries aren't up to date, or whatever. And then when you go to use that part, crap doesn't work. And then, so we want to make sure you don't have that. So where are you at, and do you have the parts, and do you have the system, and do you have the plan to move forward? We're not going to leave you hanging, and we're going to show you some of those paths. Maybe you can explain this one, Matt, just to show them what this one's all about, the preventive maintenance schedule.
Yeah, in our life cycle, we we say that these drives will support them for 20 years, and some of them actually longer. But to get to that point from startup, that's where the clock starts ticking here. Along the way, we want to either inspect or replace some of the parts. So it could be, usually what it is are the fans first, then it becomes power supplies and ribbon cables, and then eventually capacitors at about the 9-year mark. So each time that's helping reset the clock, so to speak, in that life cycle. Along that 20-year period, it may require an upgrade of a semiconductor that's become obsolete from one of our suppliers. It may be a controller is much faster and improved, gives you some extra features, so you can replace that along the way, and that helps reset the clock and give you more life, to extend that life and get you through that 20-year mark, and sometimes beyond, for sure.
And we're going to show you some pictures. I just note, I don't know if it was in, I see in the legend there's RIP, rest in peace. If you don't do this, maybe that's where your drive can show. Just Kevin humor. But this is some pictures of real stuff. And Matt mentioned some capacitors. If you look at your capacitor banks and they got stuff oozing out of them, you probably have waited a little too long. We don't want you to get to this spot. Wouldn't that be right, Matt? These are real pictures that I think you or your team have taken. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, this is something from the factory. Is commonly what would happen to the DC bus capacitors over time. It could be there was a overvoltage incident, or most likely that the can is rupturing there. It's just aging, so that can lead to a very serious problem, or it usually starts with an intermittent problem where they're getting a DC undervoltage, or if it's shorting, a DC overvoltage.
See, that's what we're saying is we can measure those variables, and then we can, this is where it's machine learning kind of stuff, is we know these are bad, then we go look at the data and say, hey, this is flaking out, let's look at these. This next one is one that blows me away, is the corrosiveness of the areas that some of these drives cabinets are put in. Again, Matt, go ahead and share your experience here.
Humidity is coupled with corrosive gases or sulfides. Certainly at a paper mill, the mills that make their own pulp, they have even more corrosive chemicals that get airborne, so you can't see them. Sometimes you can certainly smell the SO2, but over time, all our drives are air-cooled. So we're moving large volumes of air to keep those inverters cool. And if the room has a lot of humidity, a lot of buildup, or doesn't have a good pressurized, pure air room, things start to corrode like that. It's going to find the weakest parts on the circuit boards. Our boards are coated, but they're coated to withstand an environment of G2 or so. G4 would be being the worst, but if the air and the temperature of that room isn't good, over time it may take 2 years to develop like it looks on that picture, and then things leading up to it get intermittent, and eventually they just fail. But it many times attacks those smallest components and slowly grows. And if we,
Was it you telling me, Matt, that one of our customers was actually washing the boards in a washing machine or a dishwasher?
I think like a dishwasher, yeah. One of these customers that had they refined corn, and we had a bunch of centrifuge drives, and every season when harvest would come in, they essentially in those plants, it's you get like almost like a molasses. Everything gets covered, the cabinets, the anywhere where you're moving that air, and they took literally they're just taking the boards and putting them in a dishwasher. They didn't put it through the heat cycle, but it washed them up. It washed all that molasses off, and don't really recommend doing it.
We don't recommend that, by the way.
We don't really recommend it, but something close to it, actually.
Yeah. There is a way to do that. I mean, but that's where sometimes there's standard operating procedures that become normal over time, and that could actually really hurt. And so we can help with that. We can help you say, wait. You know, there's ways to do that, and that kind of gets us into these. This next picture here is. Let me get back there. There we go. Your preventive maintenance kits. You want to explain? This is your fan you were talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one of the fans. There's a couple different versions of the fans and what would be included in a kit. The can style capacitors are there. Looks like a power supply board and probably some discharge resistors. Those are some of the real common parts in those kits.
There's several different PM kits, and that's what we've tried to do is when you look at that schedule, we don't want you to get the record for the longest running piece of equipment because it's going to break at some point. And so we can help you get back on track on your PM kit. That's where these have been built. Is we didn't make them just for fun. We made them to extend the life of your equipment. So if you're not doing this, you could be hurting your equipment, and then it's a lot more expensive to change damaged equipment when it could be better to fix these PM kits. So again, we're going to be showing these at the end. If there is interest and you haven't done it, then let us know. We're going to provide a pretty big discount to help you because you're taking your time today. This is where there's some of these updates here have to do with the multi-drives and our obsolescence plan and how we can upgrade from one version to the next, these next couple slides. So Matt, you want to kind of explain what we're talking about here?
Yeah, the ACS 600 multi-drive there, whether you have the 600 that we start selling a little over 20 years ago, and it's still in classic, but it's approaching limited stage in 2022. And what limited means is we're no longer going to provide those PM kits, no more repairs, and then a limited supply of parts till it hits obsolescence. So you want to start planning for that, on resetting the clock on that life cycle plan. One way to do it would be to still do some PM with it, or start planning to completely reset the clock to the active product, which is the 880. And with the 880, we can take that old lineup and we could pick away at it a section at a time, or that's highlighted in red there, that's 4 small sections. Replace the disconnects, even replace the doors to show the new HMIs, replace the inverter, and it all comes on like a unistrut, a frame solution. So it's meant to fit in a 400 or 600 millimeter cabinet quickly. It's designed to gut the old one, put the frame in, and then with some software modifications to the program that could be done ahead of time, and maybe some small changes to the overriding controller, we could retrofit either during an outage, maybe a couple of single sections, or an extended outage, we could do an entire lineup. So that would be one way of retrofitting your way as part of this implementation process.
Yeah, and that's why we were just showing you. We don't want anybody blindsided. Is 2 years blinks pretty quick, and so now's the time to start planning. Again, we can help you with that as well, and help you with evolution planning and upgrade planning, so that you're not caught in a bad spot. And that's sort of what this next one is just to show some of the projects and the roadmaps and what's going in our vernacular: classic, limited, obsolete. These are some of the different components and solution sets that we have designed to make the process of upgrading faster and more efficient. Is that safe to say that, Matt? That's what this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so, Kevin. We're addressing both the front end of the drive. So whether you have an active front end or a diode supply, we now have solutions for those, and we have a whole host of solutions for the 600s. If you had the old ACV 700s or SAMI stars, we've got solutions for those. So
well, that's what this next slide is it shows some of the pictures of. I think you had made some comments about this and how it slides in and the wheels and the changing of the doors, and just to show, we're just showing you what's capable and what's coming and what's available now.
Yeah, those are there's 2 units on the left there, the front view. Each one of those R8Is is good for about 500 horsepower. So there's 2 megawatts of power right there. That was for a large unwind, but very compact. Up towards the top is a fused disconnect arrangement, and the custom doors are made to align the handle and with the switch, so it can be easily turned on and off. And then what it looks there on a side view to the right.
And then I believe that's what these next slides are, what it looks like in place. And you were talking about you could adjust the doors and change them. And you'd also mentioned about sliding in and out,
Yeah, those would have like a ramp, and they and about, we can kind of demonstrate it. It only takes about 10 minutes with the right tools available to roll those in and roll them out. And on the right there, you can see how those doors, those were actually new doors to, cleanly fit the installation and have the HMI on the door and those large metal handles at the top. That was all pre-ordered and set up to pull a very old drive section out of there and retrofit it in during a extended outage.
Which is kind of what you're showing here, is when you're going from some of the older technology to the newer technology.
Yeah, some smaller drives there, two of them in one cabinet. And that's kind of way the retrofit solution looked in that case.
So we want to let you know that there are things that we can do with your current system. There are programs that help you get from where you're at to the new, and you can do it in a staged approach. Now, as a follow-up to that, is we're very interested in what are some of the actions that you've taken at your facility. So when it comes to implementation actions, Matt, you're good at explaining these. Just kind of go through and explain what we're talking about.
Yeah, just following the life cycle, being tuned in on where your product is in the life cycle. We get that from typically just the serial numbers off the drives, or we know when we sold the equipment to the customer. So whether you're in that 3, 6, 9, 12 year, we want to keep you, the idea is to always keep you at least in the classic stage with it. Once you start getting close to limited, we want to have a plan to keep it supported for years to come. We want to periodically talk to you about software maintenance. If there's upgrades available, right now we're going through Windows 7 is no longer supported. People are worried about cybersecurity with that, so we have solutions, how we can migrate to Windows 10 for people, and what it's going to take, what kind of updates you need. We always want to have that conversation of backups that you in a disaster recovery, plant goes down, battery backup didn't work. Where is my or the controller failed? How do I how do I get the thing back up and running with the running program? Critical spares, we want to visit that, just talk, where people are keeping them. Are they keeping them laying in a MCC room, or are they under a good storage situation? But more importantly, that they got the right critical spares on hand. Just want to visit that with the folks that handle the inventory. Documentation, a lot of times to help customers troubleshoot, the documentation gets lost, or the as commissioned markups never seem to find their way to site. We can help you get documentation if you need it. Nowadays, everything is on CAD or PDF, and we can help get you copies for the E&I folks to better support it when there is a problem. We offer formal training, whether in center in Columbus, Ohio there, or we can take our show on the road and ship the equipment to site. And if you need help, a lot of our customers now are plugged in with remote access, and we can get a tech to log in and help support 24/7.
Very good, very good. Well, I guess we got all our questions pulled there, and then that's where this one may be kind of obvious, is there's several benefits to taking action. We would prefer you take action before there's a failure, and these are things that you can do to mitigate the risk. And so that's when we say, are you safe, reliable, optimized? And maybe something that you've seen was like, oh, shoot, that looks like my machine. Then you need to take advantage of what we're going to present here at the very end. And then once you get past these implementation, it's a little bit like pushing a ball up the hill, and if you don't put a wedge behind the ball will roll right back down. So once we've done this work to diagnose your machine, and once we've implemented the corrections, then what can we do to mitigate the risk of that performance vector sliding back down? We call that sustain. And so what I would like to do is let's jump past. Let's not do this one right now, just for the sake of time, Chris. Hope that doesn't mess you up. Let's jump into there's different types of solution sets we get into for managing your life cycle of your drive system, and we have service agreements. They're called care agreements. There's physical rounds when we go to site, but then there's digital rounds, which Matt alluded to with the remote connectivity. That is literally opening the world of opportunities for us, where it's like you can have our best people watching your drives 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's what one mill manager told me. So this digital stuff's just like that, because it can actually monitor all the time. Even our best guys have to go to bed at some point. And that's where the extended advisor comes in, is we can take a peek on a regular basis and just look at your system remotely without the risk now of travel and exposure and all that stuff. And then performance accelerators, I can show you here in a minute. Those are where we now can monitor performance indices and then alert you to any deviations from standard or from some normal, and then you can react to it before there's a failure. That's the whole idea, is to drive down unscheduled downtime as a result of the drive issue. We've done a lot of work to optimize the contractual alignments of service. We've learned a lot in the 50 years we've been doing service agreements, and so we have different solution sets that allow us to handle these. I don't like that slide so much, but is to start showing you what I'm trying to say, the categories of our service solutions. So rapid response is probably where most of you know us from. Is we have a failure, here's a phone number, and you call us, and we have some hours. That's probably the most common, but today's world, that may not be the most efficient. It was when there wasn't 6 years ago, but now it's expanded. Lifecycle management is really where you get into your preventive maintenance schedule, where you're doing physical inspections, you're looking at your parts kits, your system, you're actually taking action on a proactive manner. The performance improvement is really getting into the digital age. We're taking advantage of the nucleus of information pulsating through the veins of these drive systems and pulling them out and displaying them in a manner that a subject matter expert knows what to see. So in the past, I showed you those fingerprint reports. Those are great, but they're very manual. And it's like, I tell people it's like you have a river going by and you take a bucket of water out of the river. You've captured the essence right then, but what about the next the next bucket? So with the digital arena, you can literally have more of a continuous analysis of information to mitigate the risk even further. And so that's what's available today. And then the operational excellence is where you can have dashboards of performance that are continuous. It's kind of like a fingerprint, but you have it continuous so that anyone can look and you can set limits and you can provide an infrastructure 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on your drive system. I like this picture, this pinwheel, if you will, is it shows, maybe there's too much on here, but these are the things that need to be handled at some point, and when you have a service agreement, we can make sure that they get handled. Not just when they happen, but there's a proactive manner for if you start at the top, extensions, upgrades, retrofits. We just talked about some opportunities there. Engineering and consulting. We get asked to do a lot of that, and Matt and his team, like what size drives do I need? How can I save power? What's the best option? We can help you with that. Spares and consumables, do you have the right complement of spares? Do you do parts management? Do you have the parts kit? And you can see the technical support, there's training, there's things that are available, installation and commissioning. That's what we do. We have an expertise there. The training, there's different online, virtual, digital, in-class, in-person training options. We get a lot of that. Could you just kind of go over how to do this? Well, sure we can. Agreements, that's what we prefer because that way we have we don't like getting called in the middle of the night either. We want to make sure that you are ahead of that curve. Maintenance, end of life, which, these things last a long, long time, so we can help you provide a direction. Replacements and advanced services, we're actually getting into that too, is when you get into, optimizing your drives for better winder optimization or better machine or better draw handling. That's now available. So there are different categories and different banks of services that we offer, and most everybody has a rapid response, and that's great. But if you have a rapid response where it's a phone number and a bank of hours, we really recommend that you move in the direction of a fingerprint or a benchmark to get somebody there to evaluate it. That's really now our new contracts, that's part of it. But again, these drives have been around for 25 years, so some of the contracts it's time to maybe take a fresh look at and to be able to say, you know what, maybe there's something in the digital arena that we could use to move us into the space of operational excellence and performance improvement. So this little circle kind of shows us the value drivers. We can talk to you. We can answer some of those questions related to downtime and the cost of downtime and the maintenance costs. How do we optimize that? How can we have a process in place to reduce the risk of an unscheduled downtime? We now have a balanced portfolio of offerings that we can work with you in this space. And it's not just this space. This is the way that we're going to the market with all assets, which is like a drive or a frame or a sensor, and with functions, whether it be loop, alarm, safety, cyber, sensor correlation, or process like cross-direction control, machine direction control, startup, grade change, pulp mill, stock approach. We have this sort of portfolio mix, and we can come and do an assessment of your site to help you with that. But in this discussion, we're talking about your drives and how do we help you maintain and optimize your drives. We already talked about the dashboards, the performance. I wanted to show you some pictures. Like this infrastructure is what we're putting in place, and this is one of the advantages of some of the newer technology is it's easier. Now we do have legacy connections, and that's where some of this digital stuff we do need to sit down with you and look at your infrastructure, your security policies, your militarized, demilitarized, your control network, your business net, all that stuff. But we have worked through that in several places, and we're now able to provide real-time dashboards of performance that give you insights across your fleet, not just one drive or not just when we're there. It's all the time. You can look at, I don't expect you to read all these graphs, but those bars all mean things. So like over here, this is your torque, your voltage, your current, your temperature. Remember the KPIs that I showed you? You now have those regularly. You can look at your availability and your reliability, and you can look at things that are degrading over time. When Matt was talking about your voltage drifts, you can start picking up problems with the capacitors, the dielectric material. You can start seeing things, and you can know that you're safe, you're reliable, and optimized. And it also reduces troubleshooting time. Is if you have something hiccup and this yellow area is getting too big, and you're like, hey, we can set a threshold on that, have one of our techs log in, and it's just like they're there. It's incredible. They can dial in and look at all these fault logs that are kind of hard to read, but we have the decoder rings to suck that out so that you can get dashboards that show you right away the performance of your assets. So this is the future. This is what's available today. And if you're interested in digital transformations of your entire system, but in system drives, this is ready. We can talk to you, we can set it up, and we can set a plan. So what we're doing here is, Matt, did you want to make any more comments? We have just a couple more slides, and then we're going to be out of time. But I kind of got on a roll there, and I didn't mean to not allow you a chance.
Yeah, just the optimization with the winders, with our software integrated with the winder system. It's pretty incredible the information we can get out, not only production-wise, but tension control, analyzing a complete set, and really helping optimize the operations of it. It's pretty incredible, and the dashboards that are provided, it makes it a lot easier to put those things in perspective now. So good stuff coming. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Matt and I've been around for 33 years. Matt's been around scooch longer than that, and it's a little bit like what we dreamed we could do at one time is now here. The technology has caught the dream, and you can have access to that, and we can help you with that. So yes, there are different stages of solution sets, and that's what I want to get to here. Is these are, I kind of branded the things. This is how the presentation is gone. The benchmark would be like a red, yellow, green. I don't know how I am. I need to do a benchmark. Okay. Or, well, I'd really like to have somebody come and just take a visual look, and we can work with you in different ways there. Implementation, if one of those items you're like, man, I need some help, then just click that. If you would like to refresh your service agreement to build some of these components into that agreement, then that's the option. The performance accelerators are the digital age. It's how can we do those with an infrastructure that provides you dashboards that you can have instant feedback on your phone. And then the extended advisor is really a remote connection with our subject matter experts looking at your systems. Yes, you could do this yourself, but how often do you look at drives? You have a lot of things going on at your site. Our drive specialists may look at 50 sites a week. They get really, really good. You may look at one site every other month. So it's great that you do that, but we have a whole different set of expertise because we've been doing it for so long. And by providing this information, providing a heads-up display, we can help move you and mitigate the risk of downtime. That's what this is all about. This is a service. If you have answered the question, if I'm safe, reliable, optimized, and you feel you are, then we're happy. We'd like to talk to you and see what you're doing. If you're a little bit concerned, then if you don't really know, the benchmark would be the idea. If you're kind of think, I have no idea, then maybe a fingerprint. If you're like, man, I haven't done any of these actions, then pick that. If you would like a better systematic approach to sustaining performance, then the service agreement needs to be restructured so that we are safe, you're safe, and we're contractually obligated. And then the digital age is upon us. If we don't move in that direction, you're going to get moved in that direction by somebody. and we'd like you to go with us. And we know that it's a process, and many of you are being asked for Industrial Revolution 4.0 projects. You're being asked to come up with Lean 6 projects. Guys, right there in the system drives, you can use this to help click some of your internal checks and balances, and we can help you move. It's fascinating. It's literally it's not a cakewalk to hook all this stuff up, but we can help. We've walked through this path several times, and we can help you. So because of your time today, if you check any of these boxes, and we'll send you, and we'll line up our account managers, and we'll have a talk with you, but because of this, we will provide a discount code and a 10% off of the list price of any of these. It's also because we recognize this virus is going around, and it's a difficult time, and we want to help the industry. We want you to see what we're doing, and we appreciate your time here today. So if there's a follow-up talk, a phone number here when we get done with this. So Chris, when you get done, with this we'll finish up. So Matt, did you want to say any last-minute things as well?
No, I think you covered it pretty good there, Kevin.
All right. Well, let's just finish up with the contact numbers. Maybe you could explain the contact numbers.
Yeah, the system drives help 877-222-6955. That's for our contract customers. For anybody that needs GE Industrial Systems support, it's that 800-533-5885, and for the process drives, low voltage drives at 800-752-0696.
All right. Well, we're here for you, everybody, and we appreciate your time. It's valuable, and if you would like this presented in person, we will be happy to do that. If you would like to have it sort of locally through a virtual environment, we can do that. If you need any of these services and you've clicked the box, you let us know, and we will be contacting you shortly. Again, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you guys. We ask you to stay safe, and plug into ABB. We've got you covered.